It seems as though we have another English rock band to add to the growing, ever-growing list of unique and strange voices in the world of rock music in the UK at the moment. I know it seems as though we can't seem to stop talking about bands like Squid, Black Midi, Black Country New Road, etc, 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 but it's pretty clear to see that there is a bit of a trend of these bands pulling influences and inspirations out of, you know, post-punk and the early days of post-punk and the artsier side of rock, even, you know, perhaps some experimental isms in rock music too, with a very bold and snarky frontman to kind of just take the lead and bring out some strange isms in the music and in the vocals. And while Horsey are definitely in their own lane, I still feel like anyone that is a part of that scene at the moment, that's very much, you know, loving all of the music that we're getting from those bands, I feel like Horsey could easily slip into your rotation as well. This time around we're getting a much more theatrical Cardiacs inspiration coming through here. It feels like at points that this band are going for some kind of weird Halloween opera kind of thing, which definitely makes me excited to play this album on the day of Halloween, alongside the Clipping album that came out last year too. I feel like these two albums would work perfectly for that kind of soundtrack. He's in your face, he's yelpy, he's completely over the top and dramatic as hell on tracks like Arms and Legs, not Face, Arms and Legs. Completely obnoxious and abrasive, somehow in a good kind of way. You really have to toe the line with stuff like this, because this could easily go on the other end of the scale and just tip too far and completely do my head in, but somehow they don't do that. There's some Tom Waitsisms coming through in some of the slower, moodier tracks, which I really appreciate. You've got some really bizarre lyrics that pop out too on many of the tracks. I can't even single out one song, but this guy's writing is something else. I love that little section on Underground where he's talking about how he don't cook, he don't sweep, and he just says a load of other things too. Totally reminds me of that bloody, is it Alicia Dixon song? Where she's like, he never washes up, oh, he don't clean up, no, he never cleans up. That song was so bad, man. That song was so annoying. Why was that so popular? I hated that shit. But yeah, somehow this is like the rock version of that. Love the phases that everybody's tongue goes through. It just is so unsure of what it wants to do. It is very like mad the way this track just kind of goes from the speedy up-tempo moments to the slow moments to the really catchy and in-your-face vocal moments. It's such a great little track that transitions from so many different things all at once. The madness levels really seep through in the voice, so I love it when this vocalist really just sounds like he's yelling into hell or something. He's like, you know, falling into the depths of hell and he's just screaming his way into there. He sounds insane. Reminds me of the most manic moments you'd get from a Drones track, the way that they blend in those punky blues elements and just build upon them in such a way that not many other bands can really recreate. And this track really embodies that. I think Lagoon might be one of the more straightforward tracks on the album, but it actually ends up being one of the best. It just reminds me of your pretty standard indie rock kind of affair here. I've certainly heard many bands go for this kind of sound before. Sometimes it can sound pretty standard, but I think again, with the way the vocalist manages to command your attention and the way the melody progresses as well, it's a really good tune. Quite unique lyrics once again here, but I think that's really there to add to the dramatics of what this band tends to go for with their lyrical ideas. Clown is really where they just take the ideas they've been giving us so far and just extend them to a completely new realm. This one is just ridiculous. The theme of the clown is incredibly heightened by the fact that the instrumental obviously has a very clown circus inspired type of, you know, tune, and just adding that to their general overall insanity aesthetic and building upon that with the lyrics too, just really creates such a unique track. Honestly, there aren't really many tracks that I think would push this far with the lyrical theme and the way it sounds, just kind of showing the other side of the clown life, I guess. But if anything, this song just reminds me of something that would play while the Joker is just, you know, living his clown fantasy or something. I like the more eerie and perturbing tracks that they go for. As I've already mentioned, the moody moments of Wharf 2, I think, is probably the best example of this. It actually has such an unsettling vibe, and I think they nail this kind of slow-moving, intense vibe, because, you know, even though it's not as in your face as some of the intense moments, they can still create that effect even through the slower tracks, which I think is impressive. Leaving Song doesn't do that as much. I think this is just more of a pretty track that keeps things very strange right after Clown. Like, the transition is very jarring, but I'm sure there's a reason they've done that. I can't quite think of why they would go for the prettiest sounding track immediately after the track that probably would make you rip your hair out if you can't stand what it sounds like. The album closes out with a King Cruel feature, by the way, which I think is a pretty interesting way to end things. If you're going to get such an impressive feature on your album, I would never think to do it on the final track. It's an interesting way to close things out. Obviously, it's got the moodiness of your typical King Cruel song. Would this have been better maybe somewhere else on the track list? Possibly. I think maybe Leaving Song actually could have closed things out in a pretty nice way. But the track itself is pretty cool. It's got the usual slow, sluggish mood that you'd expect from any given King Cruel track, and it actually slips nicely into Horsey's general aesthetic anyway. Can't leave off this review without talking about 1070 though. This has some of the funniest lyrics on the entire thing. Eat that bitch like a pasta bake? I think I will. They really enter insanity here just through the things he's saying. But that's the thing about this album. It's either through the sound, the vocals, or the lyrics. You just can't really tell what kind of insane things this band is trying to give off. Because at any given moment there's just something that just sounds ridiculous and bizarre through one of those things. Probably one of my other favourite lyrics of the album as well. I'm not a romantic man, but I've got quite a large hand span. What a lyrically written song this one is. So yeah, this album confuses me in so many ways that I can't really fully describe what makes this album so good, but it just is such a cool album here, especially for a debut. I feel like they've already cemented themselves and carved their own kind of lane for themselves. You know, they're this dramatic, theatrical, weird band that makes songs about clowns and writes lyrics about, you know, eating a bitch like pasta bakes. Like, there isn't really much to compare them to at the moment, and I think that's only a good thing, because the music itself is really good and the vocals are very, very commanding and impressive. The tracks are accessible at points too. As much as I'm saying these songs are pretty wild and bizarre, I also think there's actually a great amount of accessibility to tracks like Arms and Legs, Everybody's Tongue, Lagoon. Like, these are really catchy tracks, and I think that's what's going to help this album become replayable for me in the long run. Sure, there's an artsy pretentiousness to it. I can't hide that. I think that can definitely put some people off, especially if you've never heard of them before and you're going into this blind. But I think for a debut, it does what it does very well. They leave a mark on me, absolutely, and it's a great listen. 8 out of 10 from me. Definitely one of my favourites of the year. Hopefully becomes a rock staple for people this year too. I would be sad to see this one go overlooked, but perhaps this review can put some new people onto it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what people think. I really want to see what people think of this one. It's quite a fever dream in places, but I'm sure it will impress many rock fans out there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching as always. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Check out all of my links, Patreon. Look at my Patreon. Perhaps donate if you'd like. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. I'm Not Real Music everywhere, basically. Let me know your thoughts. Have a good day and goodbye.